Hey guys, welcome to your August Pick a Deck reading. My name is Kaylee Jean. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I do divination readings for creators, entrepreneurs, artists, and anybody who's interested in basically making their life better through intuitive insight as well as personal accountability and just making things happen. I wanted to just address something really quickly before we get into the readings. Essentially, I have been kind of spotty in how I've been doing these readings throughout this year so far. I've been going through a lot in my personal life. However, I have been recently traveling with my husband and just sort of thinking about what I want to do with my channel moving forward and making some more specific and concrete plans. I feel like it's a good time for me personally to begin that process. And so for right now, my tentative plan moving forward is to do these readings once a month, and then I have a video series, actually 2 video series planned that I am compiling notes and getting ready to film, which will be coming out in between these readings. So basically this channel is going to be once a month pick a deck reading, possibly more than that, but right now that's all I can sort of commit myself to. And the other information is just going to be astrological education, interesting tidbits and insights that I feel are important based on current events, mundane astrology, as well as just my own personal philosophy. So if you're interested in that, definitely hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so that you get notifications, and give this video a like, and let's get into the readings. So I want to talk first about the astrology of August overall, because there are some dates that stood out to me when I was looking at the ephemeris. So basically, coming up in the very beginning of the month on August 3rd, we have Mercury and Venus, so the inner planets, both in aspect to Uranus, which will be at 14 Taurus. Mercury will be squaring Uranus at 14 Leo, and Venus will be in trine to Uranus at 14 Virgo. So basically, whatever is going on as you kind of go into the month of August, be prepared for just overall, and this is just general, this isn't for any specific zodiac sign, but for everyone. The 3rd of August could come through with some shocking information, some surprises, maybe something that at first we are challenged by it because Mercury, our mind in square to Uranus, it's like a challenge, maybe hearing information that doesn't seem right, or hearing something that surprises you or all of us in some way. But Venus is also in trine to that, so it could be for some of you unexpected good news, or it could be something that's maybe a challenge at first, but then it turns out to be more positive later on. It could also just be that we need to be really careful about making judgments in the very beginning of August, because we do have those inner planets which are very sensitive, and they're kind of activating the Saturn-Uranus square. Whenever you have a big long-term aspect like we have right now with Saturn squaring Uranus, the aspect tends to get activated when quicker moving planets join up with it, or sort of enter into aspect with those bodies at the same time. So that's going to be something that could be something to look out for, and maybe to reserve judgment in the beginning of the month. We do have the new moon in Leo, which is also conjunct Mercury on August 8th. So that's actually the Lion's Gate, so it's 8/8. And that date has a lot of significance in Egyptian philosophy and mythology as well. So I won't go into all of that, but basically it's already kind of an interesting and important portal for the Earth to move through symbolically, and to have a new moon on that date can suggest for many of you a really powerful new beginning in some way, shape, or form. If that is conjunct any of your natal planets or conjunct your ascendant, it could be a really big and important new beginning in your life. And it could have to do with leadership, or with being courageous, because it is that Lion's Gate. It's very, very strong Leo energy. So that new moon is going to be pretty important, and I just wanted to point that out. On the 8th of August, we will be having that new moon. At the same time, the new moon will be in square to Uranus, so again, the Sun and Moon and Mercury will still be activating a square to Uranus, so it's not going to be it's not going to be distinct from the energies that we've all been experiencing so far in 2021 as this aspect has been active. It will be representing kind of like a culmination or a high point in terms of the energies that maybe you've been dealing with in 2021. So just keep that in mind as well. By the 11th of August, things should really start to shift. The energy will probably be quite different for many of you because on that date, both Venus and the moon will be ingressing into Libra. So that's actually a 0-point declination. And so Venus will be entering, her passage through the southern portion of the hemisphere. So basically, it's a big point for Venus as well because she also rules Libra. So that's definitely a big energy shift, and to have the moon stepping in there conjunct Venus right at the same time is definitely going to bring in a change of energy because the moon tends to carry frequencies that we tend to feel more viscerally. She sort of carries those down to the earth. So when you have the moon contacting important planets that are ingressing, it tends to kind of beam that energy more down. So many of us would possibly feel more interested in making peace with things. It's Venus in Libra. It's all about, fairness and justice and wanting things to be nice, wanting things to be peaceful, and wanting to, I guess, sort of make amends possibly. For some people could be feeling that energy, or like it becomes possible to accept something difficult. It becomes possible to kind of move through an experience that you previously felt was, holding a lot of resistance. So that can be really nice. The other thing that we have going on that day is that Mercury is actually changing signs into Virgo. So around the 11th, we have multiple ingresses, and there's just definitely a clear shift in the energy. You could be feeling like you're thinking more clearly at that time as well, and things are just starting to make more sense. So the 11th, definitely a shift in the energy. And then on the 22nd of August, we actually have the full moon, which is conjunct Jupiter. And this is a significant full moon because of Jupiter being in Jupiter's own full moon phase. So when Jupiter is opposite the sun, that's Jupiter's equivalent of like a full moon phase. It's when he gets to be, the brightest and the longest in the sky. And so from our perspective, Jupiter is in a very, full position. It's basically like the equivalent of a full moon, but for Jupiter. And it's also conjunct, there's an actual full moon that is conjunct Jupiter. And at the same time, we also have Mars moving to trine Uranus. So Mars is in Virgo and Uranus obviously is in Taurus. So that is going to be also really, potentially like lightning oriented time. Like there could be a lot coming to light. For some of you, you could feel like things are opening up for you in some way, or that you're seeing energy, that you haven't seen before. It's almost like the lights are coming on, and it feels quite energizing, I would think, for many of us. But it could also kind of blow things out of proportion. Things could get a little dramatic. So just kind of try and tap into, it is Aquarius, tap into that sort of Aquarius energy of thinking things through, being, clear-headed about what is going on, and sort of trying to see things from a higher perspective. If you are one of the people for whom that energy hits in more of a overly expansive way, let's say, definitely just do your best to kind of see things from a higher perspective, because you will probably be able to tap into that energy or that perspective more easily within the next several days after, as that full moon, this pretty intense energy passes, but it's not bad. I think it's overall going to be really good. So that was just a couple of points that I wanted to make about the astrology. Let's go ahead and take a look at the decks that we have. I felt called to use and work with these 3 decks. We have the Knapp Hall Tarot with the Labradorite. So just kind of tune in and pay attention and feel which deck seems to be calling to you. We have the After Tarot with the Selenite Wand. And we have Tarot Muha with Quartz. So just kind of tune in, take a second to breathe, and choose your deck, and we will get into your reading. I'm also going to draw a couple of oracles. Got some jumpers, but we'll see. All right, so let's take a look at what we've got. If you chose this deck, we have the Eight of Pentacles in reverse with the Two of Wands, Six of Wands in reverse with the Hierophant, Three of Cups in reverse, King of Wands upright, Two of Pentacles in reverse, and the Page of Swords in reverse as well. And let's take a look at your oracles. We've got Purpose and Surrender Obsessive Thinking. Okay, so this is an interesting reading because it feels really clear right out of the gate. It's funny that you got the Surrender Obsessive Thinking card because already right when I turned over these two first cards, the Eight of Pentacles in reverse with the Two of Wands upright, I already had the phrase overthinking in my mind because, when you have this energy where it shows this guy, he looks like he's working really hard. I'll turn the card upright so you can see it. He's working really hard, and it's almost kind of like feels like backbreaking labor, but then we have, the pairing with this Two of Wands, which is kind of a paradox to that. She's standing, she's, wearing a comfortable, like big robe. She's positioned high up, and she's sort of overlooking and overseeing a situation, which indicates that she's in a very, calm position. She's in a good position. She's in a position of strength, and she's not putting out too much effort. So already I was kind of feeling like there's something that you just need to relax on. If you chose this deck, if you were drawn to this deck, there's some kind of situation in your life that you are very motivated to achieve or become or experience something in particular, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I feel like this energy is a little bit about taking a breather. Sometimes paradoxically, when we feel like we're taking a step back, we are actually, helping ourselves move forward. It's just life moves in kind of a spiral. It's not a straight line. And so achieving goals, you have to leave space for a little bit of a recess, I guess. And so it makes a lot of sense that you got the Surrender Obsessive Thinking card and then Purpose, because it's like these cards are saying for the month of August, your task, really your most productive task, is to reconnect with your higher vision for yourself, for your life, for what you're doing. It's not always about being in the weeds, getting things done, getting your hands dirty. Maybe you're in a helping profession, or maybe you have a burden that you carry somehow, because it really feels that way with this Eight of Pentacles. And these cards are almost saying, like, put that down for a second. You can always pick it up again later, but put it down so that you can look at the bigger picture, because there might be a better path for you. But you can only see that when you go to the high, castle top, or you go to your highest vantage point and you look out over, the landscape of your life, and you take a breather and give yourself the space to see that. So this energy is particularly relevant for you in the beginning of August, because I'm reading these like first week, second week, third week, fourth week. But keep in mind, these energies are fluid. So basically what I'm really getting from this is but it is a theme throughout the month, because based on these other cards you have, it's obvious it's a theme for the entire month. But particularly you'll be dealing with this as you go into August. You'll be like, oh, okay, I need to take a break, or I need to take a step back, assess the situation in a little bit of a different way. The second week, you have the Six of Wands and the Hierophant. And the Six of Wands here is in reverse. So some of you, especially if some of you are like in school, or if you have, if you are part of some kind of learning program, or if you are you're like being mentored or something along those lines, you're acquiring a new skill, you may have a little bit of, in the second week of August, you may have a little bit of a feeling of defeat somehow with that, or you're like really, again, you're working quite hard, right? But the energy is maybe a little bit of like, you work on, you write the whole report. Let's say it's like you're in school and you write a 10-page report, and then, right after you send it in, you realize that there was a big spelling error like on the front page, but you already sent it in to your teacher. So it's that kind of thing. It's like, oh man, like I checked that so many times and I still made a mistake. But again, the message here is don't be so hard on yourself. Like what you're trying to do is really difficult. Based on these cards, if you chose this deck, what you're trying to accomplish, like this message is coming through to you from the universe that's like, what you're trying to do is really difficult and you're human. So you are going to make mistakes. And, one of the best attitudes to take with that is that you never fail and that you only learn. There's no such thing as failure. There's only learning. And there's also like an ability to kind of step into your sense of humor about it and be like, well, of course that would happen. Or, just like, like I can't be perfect all the time, it's like this kind of acceptance, this like cheeky sort of acceptance of just the imperfections of life. Even though you would love to do things perfectly every time, it's just not possible for anyone to do that. So if there is a little bit of a letdown or what feels to you like a defeat or something that you were really trying on and it maybe, is a misstep, or it turns out to be one of those things that you just have to work a little bit more on it, don't worry about it, because I do think that the Hierophant energy is like, it can be about self-development through repeated efforts, through disciplines, spiritual disciplines or academic disciplines, or, whatever type of discipline you're engaging with. But this, could also be a warning sign for some of you that you're in like an overly perfectionistic environment. Like if this isn't you being too hard on yourself, it could be a warning for some of you, a subset of you, that you're maybe in a relationship with somebody who's being a little bit too like heavy-handed or high-minded, or kind of is approaching the situation a little bit holier than thou. So if you are hearing me say that and you can feel that that's true for you, then the message I would say is, figure out what your real responsibilities are in the situation. Think about like a very common sense, grounded, fair, way that you can like moderate the relationship and take ownership of your part in it without letting the other person sort of steamroll over you, right? So that's also something I could potentially see for some of you, but you'll know if that's you. The Three of Cups and the King of Fire, which is the King of Wands. And this is interesting because I do see like this kind of energy coming in around the middle of the month of needing to stand apart a little bit from the crowd, or pulling back from maybe some friendships temporarily, or, for longer, I'm not really sure. But there is this sense of like, you have to be willing to stand out, basically, with the King of Wands upright and the Three of Cups in reverse. It's kind of like, do this, not that. And the Three of Cups is a great card, but when it's reversed, it can indicate like toxic friendships as opposed to just, regular healthy relationships where there's give and take and reciprocity and all of that. And, where people feel free to express their true self. So with the King of Wands there, it's almost like the cards are saying, you have to be willing to be dynamic. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to think differently, and that might require some courage. So I do think it's important to stand out from the crowd somehow in the third week of August. And by the time you get into the fourth week, it's almost like this King of Wands energy, this ambitious energy, this standing out, this, putting something out there, maybe publishing or even just separating yourself from a group of friends. That is powerful, and that is going to change your life in a positive way. But every action has consequences. And so whether it's something in your professional life or your personal life, that is requiring courage and action from you in the third week of August, just know that you are probably doing the right thing for you, but that still doesn't take away the fact that there are challenges and practicalities that you have to deal with, on a grounded level. Okay, because you have the Two of Pentacles in reverse with the Page of Swords in reverse. So it's almost like important decisions that you're making the week before that. Then you kind of have to organize afterwards and rethink things and sort of go back to the drawing board again. So in a lot of ways, this month really does feel like it is about kind of ridding yourself of distracting influences and kind of making things make sense on the most minute level, and then rinse and repeat, every day, because that's how things start to make sense on the bigger level, right? Like you can only ever change something in your life one tiny step at a time, right? If you wanted to get more in shape, you have to do every single push-up or every single, yoga pose or whatever you're doing, those infinitesimal, tiny little actions that you just repeat over time, that's actually what amounts to a big change. And so I think, it is kind of about coming back to the smallest denomination of change that you want to make in your life at the end of the month, and really penciling out how you can engage in those activities in a way that's peaceful, in a way that makes sense, and that you can repeat every day, ideally, because that's really how you're going to initiate positive change, is through doing that, doing actions, small actions every day that will be aligned with that change that you want. So yeah, surrender obsessive thinking. This card is coming up. It says, if you're obsessing about a person or situation, turn the dilemma over to spirit. Doing so will help bring you clarity or even solve the problem. So that's really lovely. I think, it is, it's a positive message, even though it looks like maybe kind of like a challenging card, because it's saying that a lot of what you're dealing with is really, it has to do with ironing out your own thought process. And you can do that. You have the ability to do that. So, reconnect to your purpose, reconnect to your broader vision in August, and I think you'll be putting yourself on a very high road to accomplish everything that you want to with the rest of this year. All right, well, that's your reading. If you chose the Tarot Muha, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you thought in the comments, and let's move on to our next deck. All right, if you chose the After Tarot and the Selenite Wand, this is your reading. For those who chose the After Tarot. And I'm going to get you a couple of oracle cards from Soul Trees and Surrender Oracle. All right, let's take a look at what we have for August. We've got the Five of Wands with the Moon, the Six of Swords, the Queen of Swords, followed by the Eight of Pentacles, Temperance, Page of Wands, and the Empress. Wow, that's really beautiful. And I'm going to turn over, you've got Inspiration from the Soul Trees, and you've got Surrender to Trust. Ooh, that's beautiful. This is a really beautiful reading for those of you who chose the After Tarot. So half these cards are majors, which is statistically significant. And usually when you get a higher amount of major arcana cards in a reading, it tends to sort of amplify the messages that you're getting, because it matters not only to your kind of mundane everyday life, but also to your broader life lessons that you're learning, and can be more of a life-changing time. So if you chose this deck, there is some kind of significance for you right now, in August, where, it's maybe a turning point or something, a month that you will remember. The first half, it looks a little bit more watery and sort of thoughtful. It looks a little bit more like, honestly, kind of a little bit of a standstill or maybe behind the scenes type of work. So if you're an entrepreneur or if you are a creator of some kind, you could be working on something that you're not really bringing out into the world yet, or you're having, things that you're working on sort of behind the scenes, out of the public eye or out of the eye of, colleagues. But by the second half, something is sort of coming out. Something is being released. One of the reasons I'm saying that is the dove that's coming out of the cup in her hand on Temperance. That's the energy of the second half of August for you. That is how it's gonna feel. Is that something's taking flight, something is bursting almost. So it's interesting because the first half of the month, you really do seem to be making this quiet progress. And even as you go into August, you may even feel like you're at a standstill. The philosophical underpinning of this deck is that these are scenes that came about 5 minutes after the original tarot card scene happened. So in the Five of Wands, there's, these 5 kids fighting with their wands or playing. But then, the scene right after is this guy standing in the center and everybody else is sitting. And I'll leave that, symbolism to you, whatever you feel that means for you. But I do get this sense, because here we also have this, I love this moon card where she's walking out of the mysterious distance and she's coming into the foreground of the card. And it just feels like she's meeting this mysterious destiny at the same time as the crab or lobster is coming out of the water and going to meet her. So she's meeting some kind of mysterious path. She's coming out of the mystery, but she's also going into the mystery. So I think that's such a beautiful card. And when I look at these together, it feels like maybe a pause in between breaths, really. It's like the first week of August is this pause where you're not taking as much action. You might feel like you've accomplished something because these people aren't fighting anymore, but it's really a motion forward that appears more internal than external, okay? You might also be waiting for the right moment. So kind of think about that. Whatever your plans are, consider that timing is probably the most underrated and under talked about force of success in life, is just having impeccable timing. So don't give in to impatience. Try not to give in to any impatience at any point in your life, but particularly in the first couple weeks of August, because, just because you want to maybe move forward or make something happen doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right moment to do that, because there has to be, other signs coming through. And I think that you're going to be getting those in the second week of August, because here you've got, the Six of Swords, which is about passage and getting across a gap, with the river. He's taking them across the river. So rivers represent boundaries, gaps, and, points of time that are more flowing and just kind of quiet. So you're getting across that, and then you're coming to this Queen of Swords, where she has the butterfly is balanced right on the tip of her sword. So that to me feels like synchronicity. That to me feels like, the signs are, the universe is showing you the signs basically that you need in order to feel like you can start to move forward, and like your mindset is clear, your thought process is discerning, and you're getting that sort of co-creative feeling with the universe. Is kind of showing you those little butterfly moments where you're like, that makes you think, that makes you wonder, that shows me that things are coming together. So pay attention to the signs, think clearly. The second week of August, it's kind of gearing up, right? That's sort of how I see that. The third week of August, you've got the Eight of Pentacles and Temperance, and then that's followed by the Page of Wands and the Empress. So it's interesting because, here we have such peaceful and, again, very flowing representations from the major arcana, and at the same time we have these very earthly minor arcana cards which show someone engaged in a practical task. Here's this guy is like assessing his work, and he's maybe thinking, okay, is this done? Do I need to add any more detail to this? He's just sort of looking everything over. But then you have Temperance with that, so it's a peaceful assessment really of the work that you've done, and maybe you are ready to sort of let it come out into the world. Like I do so often read for creators, entrepreneurs, and people who are running businesses, and so there could be something that you are releasing, or you could be speaking your truth maybe in a personal relationship as well. If you're not an entrepreneur, this could be about taking an important step somehow in your personal life, and maybe letting people know about it as well. But again, it's like there's this feeling of divine timing that's coming through with the Temperance card, because this is sort of an alchemical card. It's a card of transformation, and it's like that, like peaceful awareness that you get when you realize that you have gone through a change, or that a change is happening, but you're not resisting it. You're sort of accepting it and moving with it. And so that is like it's actually a pretty peaceful energy in my opinion, but it's maybe because of the preparation and the timing and the effort that you've put in the past that brings the third week of August this feeling of like productiveness and this sort of turning point in being able to actually like work with or work within the transformations that you've been like building towards, right? But it's peaceful. It's like, well, this is locking in a little bit easier than I thought. I was preparing for this to be really, really scary, but it's actually pretty nice. And it's because, again, it's because of the preparation. So the Page of Wands and the Empress, at the end of the month, there could be something having to do with children. For some of you, you might be working with children or taking care of children somehow, or maybe teaching. Some of you, because the Empress, it's like mother and child right here with the Page of Wands and the Empress. She's the mother, the cosmic mother with the capital M in the tarot. So there could be something along those lines for some of you that's very fruitful and very fulfilling, working with children or a project related to children. It could, in another way, be mentorship, like a theme of mentorship coming through. And whether you are the Empress or the Page of Wands will depend on your unique situation. If you're kind of an expert in your field or in your line of work, then you're probably going to be the Empress in this situation. And you might be training or offering guidance to somebody who is just starting out and wanting to kind of become more proficient in a skill or in a practice that you have already mastered. If you are just a neophyte, if you're beginning, if you're an amateur, if you're, a beginner in some way, then you could be receiving really amazing guidance from somebody who has genuinely mastered, their art form or their skill or, their business that they're in or whatever. And you're like maybe coming to work with that person for a little while, or you're, going to book some sessions with them, or you're going to be an intern or something like that. But there's definitely a theme of like somebody or an aspect of yourself that is mature, and then there's like an aspect that is like immature but thinking outside of the box and has good insights too. And so there's this kind of interplay here, but definitely also a theme of mother and child for some of you. So interesting to have that coming up. I think overall, you might be, if you're the Page of Wands person, you might be a little bit hard on yourself, or you might feel a little bit like the situation is, it could feel like it intimidates you in some way because this guy, his facial expression. But overall, I do see this being positive, and I see just so much water in these cards, and it's like it's all calm water. So I do think this is kind of a flowing month to follow your inspiration and really trust it. You also have the surrender to trust card, so it's like really, really trust that inspiration that's coming through for you, because it is leading you somewhere, very bountiful, very abundant, and very much an expression of who you are. The Empress is about authenticity. So when you follow your inspiration this month, it opens up more doors for you to be authentic. And so that's very liberating. It says, trust yourself and your decisions. Don't be swayed by other people's strong opinions about what to do. Take action and be confident that you have chosen the right path. It's beautiful, and it really resonates with the reading. So if you chose the After Tarot, this was your reading. I hope it's helpful. Please let me know in the comments what you thought, and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. I hope you have an amazing month in August, and I will be getting into the next reading. All right, if you chose the Labradorite and the Naphal Tarot, this is your reading for the month of August. All right, let's take a look. I'm also drawing a couple of oracle cards from the Soul Trees and the Surrender Oracle deck. Okay, let's take a look here. We've got 2 of Pentacles, 7 of Wands, 5 of Cups, 4 of Swords, 10 of Wands, and 3 of Wands in the 3rd week. Le Fou, which is the Fool. And we have the Knight of Cups here. I'm going to take a look at your oracles. So you've got Change, interesting, and Surrender Denial. Wow, that's a really strong message. So there's a lot going on in this reading. I do see everything sort of landing in a more, I guess I want to say, an adventure. Like the month is sort of culminating on an adventure or a new adventure for you. But if you chose this deck, it's almost like the message that you need to hear right now is that you are kind of dancing around a lot with options, and you might be looking at the situation from a perspective that is outdated for you already, and you don't maybe realize it, or you're not honoring that. And I understand, because it's hard, because when you are, you look at life a particular way for a long time, even when you start to look at life differently, or that perspective starts to, there's a chip in the armor. It's almost like you're realizing that something about your worldview isn't quite comprehensive, but you don't have anything to replace it with yet because it's still, that realization is still so new. So I definitely empathize with you with where you're at, because it does feel like there's some inner conflict that you're dealing with, and it doesn't seem to be, incredibly serious and dark and heavy, because these are just, for the most part, these are just minor arcana cards, and then, you've got the Fool. So it's like a new beginning is coming into your life, but you're still kind of dealing with, the practical day-to-day question of like, how am I going to change my life to be more reflective of like a perspective that is more true, that is aligned with a higher frequency. You're raising your frequency, I guess, is really my point with this reading. You're raising your frequency, but in the process, you're kind of having to untangle yourself from the old stuff and from the old thought processes. And you have to really ask yourself, like, what do you feel? What do you feel? Because there's a lot of distracting energy in this spread. There's a lot of things tugging on you. You've got all of the elements represented. So this kind of energy of, oh, this doesn't quite fit right, or this doesn't sit well with me, this, trying to fit a round peg into a square, I don't know, maybe a square peg into a round hole, I guess is the way you say it. But even just trying to say that, even just trying to communicate that, I'm feeling this energy. Like, this reading is kind of illustrating, like I'm getting it, I'm picking up on the energy that you're dealing with, and it's disorienting, I guess is the best way to put it. But it should be, because you're going through a big change. So yeah, you might go back and forth a little bit as you are going through this big change. There's going to be times where you vacillate and you tip backwards a little bit, and then there's going to be times where you really feel more clear and understanding of like what is coming together in your life. But the important thing that I want to stress here is like, you're not going to be able to have it all figured out this month. So just let go of trying to do that, because I think that's only making it worse. Accept that you don't know what you don't know, and be at peace with that, and try and keep things really simple this month. The Two of Pentacles and the Seven of Wands in the first week of August shows me that you may be dealing with some kind of conflict that has to do with splitting your energy. So you might be taking on a lot more, work stuff, and at the same time, your private life is demanding a lot more of you for some reason. And so you've got this question mark of how do I prioritize? And you are feeling maybe a little bit like you want to jealously guard what free time you have, or you want to like jealously guard your space, because you're like, I need, like, my life's pulling on me and I need a little bit. I need to anchor back into myself a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm getting with the Two of Pentacles and the Seven of Wands. But the medicine for that is hinted at in these cards, because it is about kind of becoming lighter with the whole situation and not taking it so seriously. The Two of Pentacles can be a card that has to do with being very flexible. This is the Juggler. This is the other card that juggles, aside from the Fool, which interestingly you also have that card. It's about embracing the juggle as well, and knowing that you can be adaptable and that you can be flexible. And the Seven of Wands is saying, yes, there are some things that are going to require strength and discipline and balance from you, and there maybe are going to be some conflicts in that first week that you're going to have to stand your ground on, but also know that you can stand your ground and be flexible and adaptable in your life at the same time. I know that they sound really different, like they sound like, the difference between like a fixed sign and a mutable sign. It sounds like, oh, they're just not compatible, but you can actually be both at the same time. You can be fixed and stubborn and rooted in yourself, and immutable in that way, while also acknowledging the changing demands of your environment, because you don't have to root to something that makes you immobile. You can root yourself to something that's like an inner truth. that will give you the mobility to actually think about things in different ways. So I know this is probably like a really weird way of saying this, and it's maybe convoluted, but I hope I'm doing a good job of explaining this energy is that you don't have to lock in so hard. You don't have to become frozen. You can be flexible while still being true to yourself. And you're going to have to, I think, because the Five of Cups and the Four of Swords is coming up in the second week, which is, the Five of Cups has to do with letting go of things that aren't serving us. One of the decks I have shows a woman pouring out one of the cups instead of just the cup being spilt on the floor, which I think that is really a powerful symbol to demonstrate that, like, sometimes the Five of Cups, it can be about mourning something that we're letting go of, but it can also be about intentionally choosing to, pour that cup and let its contents, sort of wash down into the dirt and, feed the soil, but we don't need to always, hang on to everything. And the Four of Swords has a lot to do with, there's scales on this card. And a lot of times this card will show someone laying down, like they're sleeping in a church or somewhere sanctified, and they're sort of just taking a break within like a sacred boundary. So I think this first part of the month for you is about kind of withdrawing yourself and your life force from things that are taking up too much. Maybe back off a little bit if you're in that situation. And it might be like a disappointment to you or to someone else that you're like, no, I was going to go on this trip, but now I feel like I just need to stay home, or that kind of energy. Like, yeah, you wanted to do this, but it's just you're not quite feeling it anymore. So just accept that, whatever it is, and do the inner work and inner healing that you need. That would be a really good week, the second week of August, to just do something psychological for yourself. Maybe see a therapist, do some tarot work, journaling, anything that kind of gets you in touch with your deeper feeling state so that you can connect with your values again. And I think that's going to be the best use of your time, honestly, in like the second week of August. Now, the third week, things are coming together. Definitely a wish is being granted. So this is where we see the energy really shift around the third week of August. You've got the Ten of Wands, which also has this key. And then you have the Three of Wands, which has the lamp, which is where the genie comes out. So yeah, this is really, really beautiful. This feels work related, honestly, or possibly financial. This particular deck's version of the Ten of Wands, to me, feels a lot more positive than other decks, and the way that they choose to depict it. In this context, with the pyramid and the pentagrams here, I just feel like this is about, a door being unlocked, something coming together, a wish being granted. Through balance and the right efforts, you will be able to achieve something, or you will be given at the very least some indications, right, that the world is opening up for you in your particular manner that you want it to. So something's coming together through balance and pristine, pure intentions, through good communication, through positive effort undertaken under, the correct assumptions. There's something coming together. So the third week of August is definitely not a time to take your foot off the gas. I would say maybe it's the time to put the foot on the gas, right? Whereas like the second week was a little bit more quiet for you. The third week's going to be more like, okay, let's drive. Let's go for it. And then the end of the month really echoes that, because you have the Fool and the Knight of Cups. So this is definitely the Knight of Cups. Really makes me feel like you are pursuing something that has value, that has meaning, that has some draw to it. It maybe ignites your imagination or your vision for yourself. And you also have the Fool. So it's like, he is blindfolded, and we have this other person blindfolded. So we should probably, talk about that. But in general, I think, all adventures require us to be the Fool. In a sense, all adventures that we go on require us to do something kind of crazy, or to put ourselves out there and, in your case, I do think this is really about like being okay with taking those risks. Like the dog is biting him and there's an alligator and he's blindfolded, but at the same time, it's like this is still something that he needs to go through or that he needs to do. And the Knight of Cups is about, following your bliss in the Joseph Campbell sense. It is about following the joy, following the thing that really ignites you, that makes you feel excited. And that requires taking risks, and it requires acknowledging that maybe you don't know what's going to happen. You are blind in some ways because you're new to this, but it is about just following what is inspiring to you right now and giving that space in your heart, in your mind, and in your life. So I do see that being positive for you at the end of the month, but it is going to bring in new challenges, of course. There always will be that, but I think in your case, in your situation, you'll just be happy not to be in this anymore. Like you'll just be happy to have some more clarity, that you won't mind the fact that you're going to be taking on some new hurdles, because at least you know what the hurdles are and you're not in this like waiting game of instability, on a mental level, like, should I do this? Should I do that? No, you have more clarity and you have more meaning about what you're doing. So you're going to be able to handle more is basically the point. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing is like definitely some positive energy and some adventures being undertaken towards the end of the month. Your Oracle card is change, so definitely embracing change, knowing that your life is changing can help you to influence your destiny, basically, knowing that you do have this stark shift. This is like a page turning chapter of your life. Know that and embrace that and really use that as fuel and inspiration to employ other things. Maybe there's some, maybe you're going through a big change at work, but since you're changing that, you might as well change something about your diet because, it's like, why not? But don't overdo it also. Just try and like embrace the fact that every day you are new, and in particular right now you're becoming renewed, and so you can make those subtle shifts that you've been thinking about for a while. The Surrender Denial card says, accept people and situations exactly as they are without denying the difficulties. Then you can see things clearly and make the best decisions. So this could be a clue about some of this conflict that we're seeing here. Like maybe you're trying to do too much in the beginning of August because you're not accepting something about your situation. Maybe you're not accepting that, you're just human and you can't do all those things. Maybe you're just human. You can't be a best-selling author and, a 9-to-5 job and have, like all these different things, run 20 miles a week or something. Like maybe you're just realizing that it's just too much, and you can have elements of all of those goals or whatever your goals are. You can have elements of those goals, but you have to break them down into bite-sized chunks that you can actually handle. So allowing things to take a little bit more time gives you the ability to be more gentle with yourself, and it will also help the changes and the new habits that you're starting actually to stick. Because if you just tell yourself, okay, now I'm going to run 5 miles a day, 5 days a week, and you've never run like down your street, like that's going to be too much. So just find more measurable bite-sized type things that you can deal with, and understand the situation that you're in. Respect the situation that your life is in, because it has wisdom for you. You are where you are for a reason. You don't have to like push a button and be somewhere else. This is where you are. So accept your situation as it is. And I think that that ironically is what ends up changing it. It's so funny that that's how life is. So I hope that this reading has been helpful. I hope that you guys have enjoyed all 3 of these readings. If you listened to all 3 of them, please let me know in the comments if you have any feedback or questions. I will also put the link to book a reading with me. I will be raising my prices on August 1st, so if you're looking to book a reading with me before then, that will be the best way to lock in the current prices. I just have had my readings the same price for years and years, and they just aren't reflecting the amount of experience, work, academic study, and certifications and everything that I've earned over the past like 4 years or so, that they've been the same price. So if you are looking to book a reading with me within the rest of July is the best time to do it, because starting on August 1st, the prices will be raised, not too significantly, but it's overdue. It's long overdue. So I hope you guys have an amazing month. I hope that you enjoyed these readings. I hope they gave you something useful to think about as you move through the month of August, and I will be back in touch very soon with some more interesting videos and content, and I will talk to you next time.